Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is the Ramadan Radio, and I'm your host today, Tahir Begg. Our topic, of course, is going to be tax and business planning. I will be with you for the next hour or so. Please feel free if you've got any burning questions you would like to ask. Please do send them to our producer, Ibrahim, and he will pass those on to me, and I will make an attempt to answer them. But before we sort of formally go into the tax aspect, Radio Ramazan to everyone, 077 614, and the rest of it, Ibrahim disappeared. I can't remember. Anyway, if you can put it back on the screen, I will read it out. But we are 077 614 Radio Ramazan. MashaAllah. And first of all, I must congratulate all the Ramadan radio team for the excellent job which they have been doing. But more importantly, to all of you, the listeners, the viewers, MashaAllah, we are in the blessed month of Ramadan. This is the last Friday, Jumatul Alwida. That means the goodbye Juma. After this, next week, maybe on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, one of these days, inshallah, will be Eid day for us. And I'm sure you have started preparing for Eid days as well. But, there's something called gifts and presents. And of course, there is Zakatul Fitr and Zakat as well. And because it's that last 10 Ashra, the last 10 days of Ramadan, which are very, very special days, of course, where we get more than the usual blessings. A lot of our people actually want to make their charitable donations during these last 10 days. MashaAllah, this is a very good gesture. By the way, latest studies have just shown that the Muslims are probably one of the most generous donors, especially during the month of Ramadan. And you can see that from the various radio programs, people will make donations there, television programs, and so on, and keep up the good work. But what I would like to say, reiterate once again, is that within the UK, the government has got something called gift aid. Gift aid is a very, I would say, very positive way by the government of UK to make additional contributions for any charitable causes that you donate to. Let me give you an example. If you are a UK taxpayer and you have signed the gifted declaration, and if you give the charity £100 yourself, the charity is able to claim basic rate tax, which is currently 20%. So they will be able to claim another £25 from HMRC, which is Her Majesty's Revenue and Custom. They will be able to claim another £25 on your behalf. So, in actual fact, the total donation becomes £100 plus 25, the gifted claim which they've got from HMRC, total of £125. And majority of the charities use the gift aid for their administrative and running of the charity. So it's an efficient way of giving to charities. I would caution everybody, those who are listening and watching us on Ramadan Radio. And by the way, the number is now appearing on my screen: 077 614 60614. It's quite a easy number. Uh, I probably forget, but generally most of our youngsters, they will remember this number. Please do feel free to give a call, and Ibrahim will pass any question you have on to me, and I will make an answer, inshallah. But this gift aid is a very, very important tool for a lot of the charities, and let's focus on the Muslim charities because it gives them that additional income which they are able to utilize for Ramadan. Uh, HMRC allows you, yes, there are no restrictions. It allows you to utilize the gift aid for your admin because let's face it, most of the charities, the large charities especially, have professional people working in the operations, in the running of the charities, and they have to be paid a salary. And, either they will use some of the donations which we have given for the admin costs, or they can supplement that by the refund of gift aid which they receive from HMRC. So please do bear that in mind. More importantly, from your own point of view, you should satisfy yourself that the charities that you are donating these funds to are working, doing a good job, are utilizing maximum of those funds for the various projects that you have donated to. So I hope that basically gives you a brief introduction to the gift aid. But more importantly, I just want to mention that each one of us, we are going to die one of these days. Kullu nafsi zaikal maut. We know that everything that has a pulse will taste death, and which is something which is inevitable. But from a tax point of view, from a tax planning point of view, if you give if you have in your will that as X percentage, whether it's 10%, 20%, whatever you decide, all the whole of your estate, if you give it to a charity, then you actually get that as a concession. What do I mean by that? We each one of us who are living here in the UK, of course, we have taxes that we would be paying. If we are working somewhere, we are earning some money, we will be paying income tax on the salary or the wages or the profits that we make. It's not everything which is taxable. Uh, as a basic rate taxpayer, each one is entitled to a personal allowance of £12,570 in this tax year, which means you can earn up to £12,570 in this tax year before you start to pay any income tax. Or if you are in business, you can make profits of up to £12,570, and then and only then after that you start to pay income tax. Depends how much profits you have made or how much you are earning. You could be paying a basic rate tax which is currently 20%, or if you earn more, over about 50,000, you're going into the next rate band which is 40%, and then if you earn more than 150,000, you start to pay at 45%. So these are the basic income tax rates that you pay. But on top of that, there are other taxes as well which you will be paying. And one of the taxes which you will pay when you die, if you leave an estate and the value of your estate, the net value of your estate, if it is over 325,000, then anything over and above that will be liable to death duties, or as the revenue call it, inheritance tax. IHT for short, inheritance tax. And that is chargeable at 40%. So this nil rate band, so up to 325,000, no death duties, no inheritance tax to pay. But if it is more than that, then you could end up paying 40%. On the other hand, if you are a married couple, each couple, as a married couple, can have an estate of up to £650,000 before they will pay any inheritance tax. And to add on to that, if you have got a property and this is your residence, and you decide that, yes, this property, when I die, I want this property to pass on to my children or to my grandchildren, then you have an additional allowance relating to your private residence, and that equates to another £175,000. So, for sake of argument, if you have a property and that property is your main asset, you've got no mortgage on that, you've got no loans on that, nothing outstanding, and say that the value of that property is 800,000, is potential. The potential is that between the two of you, the husband and wife team, you can pass it on to your children or grandchildren and have no inheritance tax or death duties to pay, because 325,000 as individuals, that is wife 325, husband 325, that totals 650,000, plus another exemption for your principal private residence, passing it on to your children or your grandchildren for that matter. That is an additional £175,000 each. So that is it. Uh, I have a specialist who will be coming to talk on inheritance tax. His name, by the way, is Basit Khan. Basit has gone to the vaccination center to have his jab. So as soon as he's had his jab, he will be joining us. His specialty, Basit, some of you might know of him because Basit Khan is a presenter on Islam channel TV, but his the other is he's a management consultant, and his specialty is trusts and inheritance tax planning. So hopefully, Basit, when he joins us, if you got any specific questions, I'm sure he'll be able to elaborate and give you more tax planning advice on that. But suffice to say that currently within the UK, the 325,000 is the nil rate band. As a couple, it comes to 650,000. So if your estate, if the net value of your estate is less than that, then really you can sleep easy. You don't have to worry about it. But if the value of your estate is more than that, then yes, you need to start planning. And one of the things which I suggested to you is that perhaps in your will, you can ensure that some of your estate is given to a charity. And that again is reduces your inheritance tax liability, because it also reduces the value of your estate. Talking about the estate, there are ways of minimizing your inheritance tax, and we'll talk about it. But there are other small gifts that you can make during the year, 250,000 to as many friends and relations that you want to, any organizations that you want to. There are gifts that you can give your son when he or she is getting married. That is again an allowable, what you call, reduction of your estate. And as you said, you can give away sort of gifts. But what tends to happen is, what you need to be aware is that if you give something away in the form of gifts, whether it is money, whether it's a work of art, whether you've got a house, a second house, if you gift it, of course, there could be potential liability to capital gains tax. But from an inheritance tax point of view, once you give such sort of assets like a house, then you need to survive at least 7 years before it is taken out of your estate completely. And the other thing is, which you need to bear in mind, is that when you gift something, it has to be a total and a complete gift. You can't gift, say, I was giving an example of a house. You can't say, all right, you can have this house, but you can't carry on living in it, because that is called gifts with reservation. On the other hand, if you want to carry on living in it, then you got to make sure that you pay the fair market rent to whomever you have gifted that asset. So this is called gifts with reservations. So if you've given gifts with reservations, they do not qualify for inheritance tax purposes. So please bear that in mind. I hope this is a brief, as I said, what you call an introduction to inheritance tax. It's a very, very important tax. People don't realize they fall into that trap because so many moons ago, they might have bought a house or some other property and they paid, a nominal sum for it. And now all of a sudden that you find that the property values have gone up. And while you might be thinking, well, really, I'm not such a rich man, as far as the taxman is concerned, you could be a very rich man because that property is part of your estate. Yeah. So it's something to plan and work on. Uh, Make sure, my suggestion to you is make sure that you have a will and that you keep the will updated. And by the way, it is also our Islamic duty that we should always have a will and that we keep this will updated all the time because we don't know what our circumstances are going to be. And it's only once you have the will that, when you die, it's that much easy to get the probate and get your affairs sorted. Otherwise, it can drag on for quite some time. I hope this you'll take this tips in mind and implement those. And again, there are people who specialize in Islamic wills. Go and find your local solicitors who have got the expertise and let them draft the will for you. But it's highly recommended that you should have a will and you keep the will under review because circumstances can change. And I think Basit will talk more about it. Uh, One of the other ways of reducing your inheritance tax liability is to transfer some of your assets into a trust. And what are the tax implications of the trust? What are the rules and guidelines? I will leave it to Basit, who's a specialist in this field, to give you more information on that. Now I'll come back to where we started 3 weeks ago with this Ramadan radio show, and we spoke about income tax, various other taxes that you need to be aware of. And when I started this program, I said one of the reasons why we do these programs, or why I do this program, is really to encourage, especially our youth, that instead of wasting away their time doing nothing, they should try and be proactive and try and perhaps try and start some businesses. And these businesses could be very small businesses. You could do on various platforms which are available. I mean, eBay is a very common one where people are buying and selling things. You should try that if you got some sort of expertise, if you got some goods that you can secure and buy and sell them on eBay or some other platform for that matter and make a profit, then why not? And only when you have tried and experimented, you will know whether you've got the skill sets, whether you got the know-how, whether you got the passion for it. And not everybody is cut out to be a businessman, and not everybody wants to work for somebody else. There are a lot of people who want to do something for themselves, and we are here to help you, to guide you what the rules, what the regulations are, what are the tax implications. But having said that, there's a lot of information on various government websites, and one of the ones which is the official government website is www.gov.uk, and on that you can slash HMRC. It will take you onto the site and give you a lot of information of what is required to set up a business, how do you register your business, what are your duties and responsibilities. My advice to a lot of the youngsters who might be listening or watching this is you need to, of course, do your homework and do your business plan, have an idea what you want to do, and then pursue it. Because if you don't try, you don't know. And I always give the example of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Uh, he himself became a businessman. The first job he did, his first job, you could say, was as a sales representative or a sales agent for Hazrat Khatija, who subsequently became Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's first wife, and was his wife for a very, very long time. When Hazrat Khatija, when she was alive, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not have any other wife. It's only after her death that he married other women as well. Uh, but it gives you an example that even our Prophet, he did not waste his time sitting at home. He was actually quite productive in the sense, if you look at the seerah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you will find that he actually made a lot of profits for Hazrat Khadija, so much so she was impressed with his business skills, with his honesty, that she actually asked one of her friends to make inquiries and actually proposed to marry him. But that's another story. But what I'm saying is it gives you an indication to both men and to women, because Hazrat Khatija herself, she was a woman and she was a businesswoman. So the business is not only for men as well, men only, is for men and for women. Each one of us have our own skill sets, have our own specialities, and you should utilize those. And these days, with this global village that we have, with the internet, with the digital marketing, it is that much easier that you could be sitting, say, here in London and selling your goods and services anywhere, outside London. So those facilities are there, and yet, yeah, let's utilize them. And it's only once you started to make profits, once you started to generate income, that you are going to have to pay zakat. And that's a tax, you could say, on our wealth. Uh, but what it says is people who can afford, who have got a certain amount of nisab, that's the minimum amount which they need to have. If they have got that, then anything above the nisab, you have to pay your zakat at 2.5%. So, in a way, we are also encouraged to be business people, to make profits, to be wealthy, because that way, and it's only that way, it's only the wealthy who got a certain amount of nisab which has been ordained, that they will be paying zakat. If you are poor and you have not got that wealth, you haven't got those savings, then you are not liable to pay zakat. But at the same time, that means we are being encouraged, because if you look at the Quran, if you read the Quran, you will find that there are a number of times when we are told that after salat, it's zakat. Wa atu salata wa atu zakata. With salat, zakat is being joined. So we are encouraged, and of course, again, it's the month of Ramadan. This is the time when many of our brothers and sisters actually work out what their zakat, potential zakat liabilities are, and then give those to the poor and the needy and the other charitable organizations that can implement those projects for you. I must say, I was reading an article just today, in fact, before Juma, and it was written by one of the local muftis here. And he has said that when you are giving the zakat, of course, you got to make sure that people, the recipients of zakat, are eligible for it. And one of the recipients of the zakats are actually close members of your own families, or your bradri, we call it in Urdu, your relations. There's no point in giving zakat to somebody outsiders when you have your own family members, your uncles and your aunts, your cousins, maybe back home, even in Pakistan, who are financially not well off, and they could do with help from you. So it's also our responsibility to make sure that when we are giving zakat, we are following the proper criteria. And one of the criteria is that it is people who are close and dear and near to us, which means your family, your relations. And of course, I mentioned the word Pakistan because here within the UK, we have a fairly secure social security network. But back home, the facilities are really not that extensive. People rely on relations and other friends and other charities to help them and support them. So please, let's not forget our brothers and dear brothers and sisters who are perhaps less fortunate back home in Pakistan as well. And that if you give your zakat, of course, the zakat can reduce your inheritance. And sometimes you can give big lump sums of zakat. And the more you give, um, the less inheritance, potential inheritance tax liability there could be. So that's one way of reducing your inheritance tax. As I mentioned, Basit will be here later on. But there are things like trusts. If, on the other hand, you're not a wealthy man, then this is one of those taxes that really you don't have to worry about, because inheritance tax is only payable if your in wealth net estate is more than £325,000. If it is not more than that, then okay, of course, the tax does not apply to you. But the tax does apply to people who are in business, who are working, who have made profits. And what tax is that? That is called income tax. And I repeat myself that you only pay income tax once your profits are over 12,570, or your income is over 12,570. And a tax tip here. We find that sometimes in my practice, I've got people who are working, who are in business, who are making profits, and their spouse or their wife or their husband has been helping them in the business, but they are not on the payroll. Well, sometimes really that is an opportunity which is a wasted opportunity, because if they were on the payroll, they could be earning up to 12,570, because that's their tax free personal allowance, and not pay any income tax on that. And as far as your business is concerned, that would be treated as a business expense. So that means your profits would be less by 12,570. So you'll be saving tax on that as well. So really, it is a win-win situation. I would urge people who are in that particular category to make sure that if somebody's working for you, whether it's your, as I said, wife or husband or your children for that matter, provided they are of the appropriate age, because you don't want child labor here. Uh, if they're working for you, even if they're working for you on a part-time basis, make sure that they are on the payroll. Make sure that you pay them, and it is declared, because they could get personal allowance, and of course, it will be treated as a business expense. But more importantly, looking long term, when you do retire, if you have been working and you've been paying your national insurance, and you have to qualify to get your state pension, to get the maximum state pension, you have to have 35 qualifying years, which means in each year, in each tax year, you should have paid enough in national insurance to have qualified to receive state pension. So state pension is around about 180 pounds a week now currently, uh, but you need to have made those contributions. And so if you have not been on the payroll, if you have not been making those contributions, you are not going to get the state pension when you retire. So it's something to look at as well. It's not just a tax planning now that you are paying somebody, they are on the payroll, you know, they're making national insurance contributions. But these national insurance contributions will qualify or could qualify you for state pension at the retirement age. And the other thing is, we've all been having, the COVID-19 situation has been lingering on for over 12 months now. So during these period, the government has come up with various support schemes, whether you are self-employed, whether you are in business, whether you've got employees of whom you have had to put on furlough. Furlough being that you have not made them redundant, but because, for sake of argument, your restaurant was closed, you were only doing now takeaway service, so you didn't need that many staff, waiting staff, backup staff. So you asked them temporarily that, look, you stay at home. So the government said, well, okay, if they're going to stay at home, you can still carry on paying them, and we will reimburse you. Now, this only applies to people who have been on the payroll. If you were not on the payroll, you could not be furloughed, which means you would not be receiving any financial support from the government. So people need to realize this, that all of these things are tied up. I'm saying this even when we are sitting here. This is the month of May. Here in the UK, the COVID seems to be very much under control, mashallah. We are blessed in that way, but you never know what the future holds. Supposing it flares up again, and we have to go through the whole thing all over again. If you have not been filing your accounts, if your accounts are not up to date, if you've been if you've got employees who have not been on the payroll, how are you going to claim on their behalf, right? If you have not filed the returns, your returns are not up to date. There were various schemes, whether, where you were self-employed, the government were able to give you some benefits for that. But for those, you had to file their accounts. The accounts needed to be up to date. Your tax returns needed to be up to date. Make sure that you are aware of these things, and make sure that in future you comply with the rules and the regulations, because without those filing of the tax returns, without those accounts being filed, without people being on the payroll, none of these schemes would be available to you. That's something to bear in mind. And it's a lesson to be learned for a lot of our people, because I've had instances where people have come back and said, Tahir Bhai, I'm not getting any pay. And when you ask them, have you filed any account? They said, no, I didn't file any account. Well, how does the government know how much to give you? You not filed your account. You not filed your tax return. Uh, I'm not getting any government grants. Why not? Uh, these people, well, I was not working. I was not on the payroll. Well, if you're not on the payroll, how is the government supposed to know what you are earning and how to give you that money? Yeah. If you are an employer, well, if you have not submitted your returns, if you've not got people on the payroll, the government is not going to give you any of these support grants, which they have done very generously as well. Because I'm looking at some of the accounts that we are doing now for our clients, and we find, I mean, I actually commented only yesterday to one of our clients. She's she runs a beauty salon, somewhere in Kent. And most of the time, the saloon was actually shut. For last year, most of the time it was shut. But she had received generous grants. In fact, when I did her compiled her accounts, I found she made more profits. And I told her, I said, oh, you know, this government scheme has been quite generous for you because once you've taken those grants into account, and by the way, those grants are taxable. They're not tax free, they are taxable grants. Once you've taken those into account, I said, oh, you have done quite well, and there will be taxes to be paid. But coming back to my point, these grant schemes have only been available to people who have actually had their accounts filed and have been up to date with them. And by the way, those people who are self-employed, I should inform you that the fourth grant is now available. It came online from the 29th of April, so you have, I believe, till June. Don't quote me what date. So you need to make sure that you make the application so that the grant comes your way. By the way, talking about the furlough scheme, this scheme runs up to September of this year. So there will be people. Of course, there are modifications in the scheme as the economy opens. But those people who are furloughed, yes, the scheme is available till September of this year. My own prediction is that the taxes going forward are likely to go up. We've had some indication of that in the budget by the Chancellor sometimes in March, when he said that the corporation tax rate, which is currently 19%, will be going up for companies whose profits are over 50,000. So currently, if your profits are under 50,000, your corporation tax is 19%, and it will continue to be 19%. But if your profits are going to be more than that, then that tax rate is going to go up. It's something to bear in mind. As I said, yes, I can see the tax is going up because, of course, the government has spent so many millions and millions in this COVID relief packages that there will come a time when some of that will have to be uh, pulled back. So I estimate that it's likely to be some of these taxes are going to go up. One of the tax, just for your information, is VAT. It's called value added tax. Currently, it is at 20%. However, there are special schemes for restaurants because the hospitality trade has suffered quite extensively during this period. So that reduced VAT is still available. So each days, as long as the restaurants are open, hopefully you can give yourself a treat and utilize benefit from that reduced VAT rate for the hospitality industry. And that again is going to expire very, very soon as well. So bear that in mind. The other taxes that are likely to go up, because currently, as I said, the VAT rate is 20% here in the UK. But on some of the continental countries, the VAT rate is high. So my guess is going forward, there's a potential that the VAT, even within the UK, could go higher than 20%. Uh, I mentioned about income tax. The income tax rate is 20%. The income tax personal allowance is 12,570. And this again is going to be fixed for the next, I think, till 2023. That gives you also an indication of what taxes are likely to be. Now, coming back to my favorite, which is encouraging the youth and the youngsters to be in a business on their own. I mentioned one platform, which is eBay, quite well known, but there are others as well. I think the youngsters are more aware of this. And there are, of course, items, things that you can use to make people aware, where there is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, people, your WhatsApp, all of these things are there. And again, now that we are nearly, the summer is upon us, inshallah, come June, Pakistani mangoes should be coming up in the market. Every time I take the name Pakistani mangoes, my mouth starts to water. Uh, Being Pakistani, of course, slightly biased, I think they are probably the best mangoes in the world. In fact, I would say they are the best mangoes in the world. Yes. Why do we Pakistanis need to be so modest? We should be proud. Of course, they are the best mangoes in the world. And, everybody says so, and they are. Like Pakistani basmati rice, of course, is the best basmati rice in the world. Um, Halal food, of course, is the best halal food. So every time you want to eat something, make sure it is halal, because halal is good for you. That's what we have been told by our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's what we have been told in the Quran as well. And to do halal business is also tayyib for you. I mentioned the word halal. I emphasize the word halal. I I can tell you there are no other mangoes. I've got some other information coming on my screen. I am going to stick to my version. Pakistani mangoes are the best mangoes in the world. As a Pakistani, I'm entitled to say that, Alhamdulillah. And, talking about that, why I was saying mangoes is that, yes, with these restrictions that we have, and young fellows, you can actually make some arrangements with the local uncle, buy some of the mangoes in bulk. And even if one box is £5, if you do delivery, to the auntie at her home, she wouldn't mind paying you £6, which means you've actually made a profit of £1. And if you do 30 deliveries in a day, well, that's £30. Every little helps. Five days in a week, £150. It's below your personal allowance. So if that's the only income that you're having, no tax to pay as well. Might help you, with your tuition fees, with your Ramadan fees, a Ramadan treat to your friends as well. So all these things add up. I mentioned tuition fees deliberately because some of you are sort of well educated, have got an expertise in some sort of specialist subject. You can actually provide tutoring online. These days, I mean, even madrasas are online. People learning Quran online. You could just give tutoring online in your specialist subjects. There are youngsters who are perhaps struggling with their physics or maths or chemistry or whatever, various subject. They want to do their O levels. They want to get good grades. They want to do A levels, and go into good universities or further studies. And if you have an expertise, you can give tutoring online and earn some pocket money. By the way, the revenue have a special allowance, and they say if you are got trading income of up to £1,000. So this is, for people to experiment, to start off something up to £1,000. You don't have to fill in any tax return. You don't have to make any declaration. You know, this is a trading income, gross trading income of up to £1,000. So, it gives you an opportunity to perhaps dabble and try something out and see if if it's something for you, if you are successful. If it's like an experiment. And if you're successful, then you carry on and then you register with HMRC. If you are not, then you have not earned the income, or it's under £1,000. So there's nothing to declare. It's not illegal. It's allowable. That's what the revenue says. This is something that came into place about uh, a couple of years ago. I thought I should bring it to your attention. And I should also say, look, the telephone number is there: 077 614 60614. If you want to give a call, please feel free to do so. To be fair, I think Basit is probably stuck with his vaccination. Maybe what I will do is I will ask him to join me the next week. So I don't want to let you down because it's a very, very important topic. Tax planning and inheritance tax. Death is inevitable, but we need to plan for our deaths as well. You need to make sure that you don't end up, leaving the tax man or 40% of anything over 325,000 of your hard earned income. But the opportunity is there. You need to plan for that beforehand. Trying to wrap up now because at 4 o'clock, inshallah, we'll be finishing. I hope some of the things that we have discussed, you found those useful. As I said, there's more information available on the various government site. I find the www.gov.uk/HMRC very useful. A lot of the tax information is available. It is not rocket science, but you need to have some sort of understanding of what taxes are and how to go about minimizing your tax liability, because the law actually allows you to minimize your taxes. The law does not allow you to evade tax. Tax evasion is illegal. Tax planning is legal. What we talk about on these programs has been how to minimize your taxes, whether, as I gave you indication that if you got somebody working, make sure they are on the payroll. If you're working from home, the revenue, for example, allow you £6 per week for use of home for business purposes, without any detailed record keeping. But if you're utilizing more of your home, for example, these days, with the COVID issues, a lot of the people have been working from home. If you can justify a higher expense, then you can claim for that. Make sure you got the justification, you got the record to claim for that. Other people have got a big house and they said, look, the children have grown up and they are all gone. And I've got 2 or 3 spare rooms. Well, what can I do? You can actually rent one of those spare rooms in your house and, receive, rent a room income of up to £7,500 in a tax year without having to pay any tax on that either. So these are some of the schemes which are available to you. I'm afraid we don't have that much time left, but the number is there. Ramazan Radio is there. There are other programs coming as well. The program, I think Ramazan Radio is up to midnight. I'm not sure, to be honest. But we will be here next Friday as well, which will be Eid Day. Perhaps give me an opportunity to wish all of you Eid Mubarak. And also, what I'm planning to do is inshallah, see you next Friday, inshallah, at 3 o'clock. And then the next program is a time with the children's story time. So please do feel free to call 077 614 and do tune in to listen to the children story time. There are so many stories, but people uh, have forgotten the art of storytelling. I remember when we were young, uh, books were few and far apart. There was nothing like this mobile phone or YouTube or all any of these gadgets. A lot of the time, we used to hear the stories which were transmitted verbally from the elders. And I remember when my children were growing up, there was a story I used to tell them verbally every day, and they used to laugh. At least that's what they pretended. Anyhow, I think I've said enough for the day. Thank you very much. I have very few minutes left, 2 minutes, I believe. Ibrahim has been telling me. But what I would like to say is tune in and listen to Ramazan Radio. And I look forward to seeing you, inshallah, next Friday from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock with another interesting topic on tax and tax planning. And I wish you well. If Eid is next Friday, I will wish you Eid Mubarak on that day. If it is not, if it's on Wednesday or Thursday, I wish all of you Eid Mubarak in advance and ask you to pray for us and pray for other humanity as well. There are a lot of people suffering, with COVID and other issues. May I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that life is easier for them. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And this is goodbye and Khuda Hafiz from Tahir Begg. Until next Friday at 3 p.m. Assalamu alaikum.